Hey everybody, welcome to the Breakpoint live stream. This is the developer live stream for Breakpoint, as I just said. Awesome. My name is Nick. I'm joined by Ed, the other developer on Studio Aesthesia, working on the game. We are joined by guest Patrick Nance, otherwise known as JP Nance. Do you prefer JP or Patrick?
If it's my speedrunning career that we're talking about, it would be JP, but in life it's Patrick. So
in life it's Patrick.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay.
I've actually
I guess
wondered,
because we're talking in life, we're not referring to each other. Yeah, I will say
seems
Patrick.
lifelike.
I've actually often wondered
Yeah.
though, is JP like a shortening for something?
My middle name is Patrick, and it's literally just my name. My first name is James.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I've just always gone by my middle name.
That's what the J stands for. Now we know.
Exactly. It's a huge secret.
It was a huge secret until now. I for whatever reason, I thought it was John, but maybe I'm just interjecting the idea that everybody with a J name is John.
Right.
If you guess either John or James, you got pretty good odds.
Actually. Yeah. Not a bad odd for that. Well, we're just going to be having our stream. Go ahead, Ed, if you'd like. Go ahead and start it. Yeah. And we're just going to be talking over the gameplay of this. So we'll monitor the chat, and we'll have an archive of this later. But for anybody joining us, if there is anybody, welcome in, and feel free to populate the chat with any old dumb question you have. No question is dumb. Why did I say that? That's so before we head off, in terms of the discussion, let's just actually talk with Patrick a little bit about his career. If you could just walk me through a little bit of your history in game development.
Yeah, sure. So I don't have much of one, to tell you the truth. Sure. Most of my career has been as a web developer, or like kind of a web services type of engineer.
Okay.
But a few years ago, I got kind of sick of that and decided to, how about video games? Why not? Let's see about those.
Was video games something that you want to do for a little while?
I
even
really
while you were doing the web career?
I honestly don't totally remember. It wasn't really. So I've made a lot of like sports pools, like little fantasy game type of things.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But never something so highly interactive, 60 frames per second, sound effects and music.
Sure.
Video game.
Yeah.
I don't.
Video game.
Like a real video game.
Yeah. None of those fake visual novels or anything like that.
Hold on. Those are very well selling on Steam.
Exactly. I enjoy them myself.
We should be so lucky to make a visual novel. Come on.
Trust me. There's a lot of things I'd like to try. Visual novel is one of them.
So yeah, honestly, I don't really remember why I wanted to give it a shot, but I guess I was just sick of my job at the time, and I felt like I had some money saved up, and I wanted to just, try something that I'd never done before. I think part of it was maybe that I'd found, I kind of had a little speedrunning career, as I mentioned earlier, and one of my peers there had participated in Ludum Dare.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
One of the big game jams, and he posted his project to GitHub, and I looked at it, and it was implemented in JavaScript, which I thought was really cool because I could actually read it. Like, it wasn't like a Unity project or an Unreal thing, or just even whatever that SDL, that old C library. It was actually in JavaScript. It was like his own engine and everything.
Right.
So it was just
because you had a history in web development, you were able to parse what that looked like too.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so it felt like for the first time I could actually understand how it was implemented.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And, that definitely helped me. That might have been the kick I needed to get into video games at all.
Okay.
So anyway, I started working on a solo project that didn't. It was. Like I said, it was just a passion project, just a little cute thing.
Was this in any engine, or was this in JavaScript also?
No, it was all in JavaScript. No engine at all. Partially because I like to make things hard for myself, and partially.
Well, everybody who starts out, they don't know how hard it's going to be to create anything.
And so I was implementing a 2D platformer, and it is. I'm not sure hard is what it is, but it's so incredibly tedious.
Yeah.
To implement like physics and just like how do you implement when your character runs into a wall, stopping them,
like collision detection, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Getting
really
anywhere
seamless.
like with making stuff from scratch. I can definitely relate to that.
For sure.
There's so many things to consider.
Right.
So I worked on that for a little while, and then after a few months, went back to work, and then I kind of picked it up again a couple of years later. This is probably 2018 at this point.
Okay.
So I'm working
how
on
long
it.
were you on this smaller title before this one you're talking about?
I think I started it in 2015, but I only worked on it for a few months then.
It was sort of intermittently.
Yeah, and so when I picked it back up in 2018, it's probably like grand total a year of effort, maybe slightly more, but again, it was all just sort of like hobby project for a while.
Yeah.
But at the end of 2018, I went to my first game jam. So I did 2 game jams in successive weekends. The first one was online.
Was this by yourself or with anybody else?
Yeah, the first one was an itch game jam.
Okay.
Just on itch.io. And I did that alone.
Okay.
Just because I don't know. It was online. I didn't know anybody.
On yourself.
I guess so. Yeah. So I implemented this just little like action puzzle game.
Yeah.
Which was fun. But I
actually
also
finished.
yeah. I mean, it's a playable game.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's hard.
Yeah.
You're first to say, having a first game jam, just even finishing is a feat. So
yeah, it is. I was definitely up till
really...
it's like the most recent time of my life. I've been up till 5 a.m. working on something.
Okay.
And then the very following weekend, I knew
very
that
disciplined.
Yes. The following weekend, I knew that the Seattle Indies Game Jam was going on, and I think at this point I had been to a couple of Seattle Indies events. I think I had met Ed actually already at that point.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were sort of floating on the periphery here.
I was in the periphery, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, so the Seattle Indie community had a game jam, and I went there, and I told myself like I wasn't gonna just work on a solo project. I did want to find a team when I got there. And so once the theme was announced for that game jam, this guy pitched his idea for a
this guy.
2D platformer, a 2D platformer with no jump button.
Okay.
And I thought that sounded cool. And then I met Kyle, and now, like almost 2 years later, we're about to release Deleveled. Like literally, this game that we worked on as a prototype at that game jam got good reception, and we both put it down for a few months, but then picked up development on it a few months later, and we've been working on it ever since. So like really
was that a conscious break between, or was that
so we were both, kind of at the end of our solo project, so he was kind of doing the same thing I was.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, in many ways, our careers are actually quite paralleled, where he's not a game developer really either. I mean, now we are, because he's playing a video game and you get to say
that's exactly what you're doing.
But he was more of like a middle tier and back end guy and software engineer.
Gotcha.
And he was, just like I was, about video games. Why not?
Yeah.
So we kind of finished up our projects. In his case, he actually shipped something. In my case, I just got sick of working on it and decided it wasn't going to be any more than it was.
That always happens too.
But then he called me up a couple months later and said he was gonna spend some more time on Deleveled. And then I said, well, all right, I'll give you a few months.
Yeah.
And again, that was in January of last year.
Yeah, exactly.
18 months later, here we are.
So did you, following that, during the break, did you want to work on Deleveled, or was that something that you safely put back on the back of your mind for working on it?
I thought at the time that it sounded cool to work with Kyle again. I thought we worked really well together at the game jam itself. Mm-hmm. And it was nice to be working on a project that it felt like somebody was interested in, because I didn't really have any of that that validation,
essentially being a part of like a community that is actually willing to pursue their goals pretty seriously, even if it wasn't like professionally backed, like at a studio, or like people at your work are necessitated there by like their monetary and financial obligations, but like people actually pursuing hobby development, that's a very different beast. You have to actually have people who are disciplined enough to continually pursue their actual development and to actually continue to do so, because there are people out there who have a lot of passion and that fizzles away when financial backing no longer becomes feasible, or if you just get tired of developing it, and any number of the in-between happens. And it sounds like you guys were at a fairly comfortable place where you're willing to still both approach it professionally and then also like put some stake into it, like actually develop it for real.
I mean, at the time it definitely felt like, well, what are we going to do with Deleveled? We're going to make it so it was like we had 20 very simple levels for the Game Jam version, and at the time it felt like, well, let's just like double that and then put it on Steam and sell it for $1 or whatever, something to that extent.
That's how that conversation always starts, Patrick.
And then into that we eventually started saying, well, wouldn't it be cool if we just added this feature, or wouldn't it be cool if it were this many levels? We eventually got put in touch with a publisher who, you're a publisher too. We're all part of the
very same one we're also under.
And so when we talked with them, they said, well, if you sign this piece of paper, we'll port your game to Switch, and you will definitely release your game on a Nintendo console. And that was, I gotta be honest, that was a very easy piece of paper to sign for us, because that was beyond what we had thought the game would be. We really at the time just thought it was spend a few months, release it on Steam, and then that's it. Go back to a desk job or whatever, but you're done with Deleveled. And when it became a reality to us that we were going to be releasing a game on a Nintendo console, I won't speak for Kyle, but for me, that's kind of a dream come true. In a very real way. I think it, and I still probably.
Fanboy? Are you?
Yeah, I really am.
I mean, your picture here on Discord is of Mario. So.
It's literally Mario from Mario 64, but in Houston Astros. You could say that I'm a Nintendo fanboy. And this, it's probably waned on me over the last year or so, but it's still going to be pretty cool when I actually play a video game.
I mean, I think that Switch. Right, when a time actually comes and you're able to see your product on the platform, it's actually a pretty. I'm sure. I can't speak for myself because that's have yet to see it myself, but I'm sure that would be a great feeling because it's a culmination of a lot of the work that you actually put into the game or into developing the game, and it actually into fruition.
Even just so I have played a dev version of our game on our
you have? Okay.
dev console, which was pretty cool. I gotta tell you, it was even before this game, on my last game, at some point during that development, I just sort of like took an HDMI cable and hooked my computer up to my TV, and then and paired my Switch controller with Bluetooth, and it was awful. Like, it was so laggy. It was like it took like 2 seconds for inputs to get through, but nevertheless, it was this moment where like, wow, like a game I am making is at least on a television, and I am controlling it with a video game controller, and it was, I don't know, it's just this moment that. I feel like
the context absolutely changes everything. Like it makes a huge difference to like how it feels and what it seems like is happening. Like that's totally. I totally understand that. There's a reason why people have like affiliations in these ways, because these feelings are real. These feelings are real for the consoles that they like or controllers that they like to use, things like that. So
I feel like it's kind of 50-50 once we actually release this thing, if I have another moment like that, or if I just don't even want to look at it. Like, I don't even want to get it.
I'm get tired of seeing squares.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so once we knew that we were going to release on Switch, then we had to start thinking about like, well, does the game need to be any bigger? Does the scope increase, or do we go further with any concepts? And so ultimately our answers to all of those questions were yes. And then now we need, we decided on like, well, like it's a puzzle platformer, like 100 levels seems like it'd be a good number. You got to get to 100 levels.
Yeah.
And it's
nice,
like, okay,
even round number.
But we need content for all those 100 levels. All right, 10 worlds, and then we do something new every world, and it's like, okay, well, you need 10 different mechanics now. Yeah. And so it's just like
breaking everything apart into different worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. not to mention, I only had one passion project's worth of experience designing all these levels, so I needed to learn a lot about that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
yeah, I feel like project management was one of those things that a lot of indie game developers have some difficulty with, which I will say
we're also running into on Breakpoint.
I admire, yeah, I know. I admire your guys' ability to, your stick-to-itiveness to actually release in within a reasonable time frame for the most part for you guys. You guys have, it can be tough, really. I think. I mean, honestly, clearly having some responsibility to a publisher has some say in how you feel about those things, because when you don't, I think a lot of indie developers get scope creep and they just allow that to creep up on them, and then they just allow themselves to kind of perpetually get into development for long periods of time, and then they I think the biggest part that makes games irrelevant is that they spend so much time that other games just end up taking over what would have been a neat, cool mechanic, and they just took too long reaching their destination, that some other people are now there, and it just feels bad to release their game in an environment where they're now maybe just a participant rather than a headliner in maybe a cool idea that they had. So
yeah, I totally agree. So like Quantum has been very clear with us that they don't rely on us for. Well, let me rephrase this. That's going in a weird direction.
Sure.
They do need us to make the game. They are relying on.
Well, yeah, of course.
They don't have any time frame for us. So like they've been very like liberal. Just say like there's no time pressure. We're on your schedule. But nevertheless, it's still. I think for us, it's still pretty nice to know that we have this relationship with, like, they are relying on us to release at some point.
Right.
And it's just this. I guess it helps reinforce that, like, we do want to be done with this project, because it's not just us; it's other people want to be done. Like with this, we want to see this ship at some point. And we can't just keep experimenting with stuff. We've recently been going through. Because like you honestly kind of forget about this stuff unless you write it down, but like everything that we've cut, like, so things that we maybe
yes, please tell me about everything that hasn't.
Yeah, like things that we tried and seemed like a good idea, or like we just knew this was a good idea and we implemented it and it just isn't going to make the game, or like things that never even made it that far, but like I know that they are good ideas, but it was just like, well, this is just clearly out of scope, we're not going to do this. But like in our game, we have a few mechanics that actually were in the Game Jam version, but we kind of removed because they just didn't. I couldn't really take them far enough. Like I couldn't really give them the treatment that I wanted to. They weren't that interesting for long enough, so we ended up cutting some stuff. Or pretty early on, we had the idea for like, well, this game is cool and all, but maybe people would actually really like to make their own levels, and we quickly nixed that because. To maintain, first of all, to distribute like a level editor is to the public is, I don't honestly know how like Mario Maker does this. I mean, or any game that ships you a level editor, that is, it feels like you're supporting something totally different at that point.
Yeah.
It's really impressive that games ever do that to me. But then also, like in the case of Mario Maker, you got to host the level somewhere, so it's like this extra server problem. So it's just like it was so obviously out of scope for us for this project. That like that's something that we said. We actually have a little list for all of our tasks that we're not going to do, but we want to keep a record of it, and it's just called.
Oh yeah, because it's like good ideas.
It's just called for the sequel.
Yeah. It's a good list to have. It's
exactly.
important to be able to keep in mind all the things that you have, because like you said, it's easy to forget all the things that because I mean, like, development is so rapid, and you just have to you just have to kind of approach things as they come, and when
and it's all like
when you have a great idea and you're like, well, we can't do that, but I don't want to lose it, because if we're moving this fast, I can't keep in mind all of the great ideas that we have, or even some of the bad ideas, but we just need to figure out that they're bad later.
Exactly.
Like ideas worth fleshing out, I think, are worth writing down somewhere, just because the human mind is only so much in its capacity to memorize information. And while we're busy dealing with building the game and getting ourselves out there, it's easy to kind of lose touch with I don't know, just the pure development process where ideation comes into phase and you're actually coming up with cool ideas, especially because if you don't actually build that phase in the very beginning, it can be really tough during the development of a game to actually spend time to ideate during the process.
For sure.
So I mean, like that, and that's actually another question I'm kind of curious about. Since you guys had come up with this idea for the jam, is there anything that sort of was put on the cutting room floor as a result of you guys having to shift gears from your ideas as a jam into, because I know we have for Breakpoint, but shifting from a game jam game into a real game, it kind of changes your opinions about like what kind of things you want to do. And I know that like obviously I'm sure some of your ideas had expanded. Is there anything that sort of cut or changed kind of dramatically as a result of shifting from a jam to
I mean the overall format of the game is, at least from a game design perspective, is quite different. So in the original game, it was kind of intended as like this, it's a puzzle platformer, but it had a lot of precision to it. It was supposed to sort of be like a troll game a little bit. But like the trick in the game jam levels is just sort of understand the few, the 3 or 4 rules that we're throwing at you, and just sort of reason out how to do it, and then also have decent timing to avoid spikes whenever you need to. Yeah. But when we decided to go to a real game, so to speak, a full release.
Full release, yeah.
We felt like it just wasn't enough. It just is like, so once you beat a level, you're just totally done with it. And it's like, that's kind of true of every game, but
sure, yeah.
It just didn't feel quite like enough. So we came up with this idea that you had to sort of reach certain checkpoints in the level. And this is it's kind of hard to describe if your viewers aren't familiar with the game.
Yeah.
We've introduced
these you're talking about?
Yeah, these light switches that you need to turn on. And so you have to like prove that you have real control. You're kind of controlling 2 characters at the same time. And so we really make you constantly prove that you actually have control over where they're both going. And that is, that's a concept that totally did not occur to us in the game jam version, and that I don't know that it's really appropriate for a game jam type of thing. You can do whatever in a game jam, but that would have just been like a lot more level design.
Right.
And indeed, it has been. It has been a lot of level design to go into the 120 levels that we have in the game.
Wait, so does that mean you had a bunch of levels and you had to go back and put the light switches in, or in order to justify their existence a little bit further, or are you saying that you had to make a bunch of levels moving forward with those in mind?
It was more the latter. So we just kind of had a different vision for the game before we came up with the switch ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we were sort of reusing levels that we had used in the game jam version because we didn't necessarily yet know the direction we were going.
Sure.
But it was mercifully, it was pretty early on that we decided to go with the light switch type of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
And so we didn't have to throw all that much away, at least not much that took very much time to make.
Gotcha.
And so for the most part, that's just been, maybe not from day 1, but from day 20, let's say, we've kind of had this concept. And so all of the levels have pretty much been designed with that in mind. In some cases, now there have definitely been levels that we've thrown away that, like, I put a bunch of
natural.
Yeah, like, I put a bunch of switches into them, and I'm just like, this is it's just not fun, though.
Sure.
There's probably a couple of those that made it into the game too, but anyway.
Yeah, you can only control so much, and at the same time, some levels are still salvageable, despite like having some aspects of them might not always like. Some people, you'd be surprised. Some people are more into some things than you would think sometimes. Like, I'd say this as someone who's like debuted various projects at like show and tells for game jams and things like that, and I'm like, wow, I wasn't really a big fan of that, but I'm glad some people are, because I thought it was kind of dumb. Like,
even this game in some of the early stages,
I was like, what's that?
Even Breakpoint in some of the early stages.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I explicitly remember, like, when I was doing DevTober last year, I just was like, oh my god, I have to post something every day. This is so I'm so not into this, and I wasn't used to that for Twitter either. Like I hadn't engaged on Twitter for such a long time.
Yeah.
And for a long period of time, like ongoing. And so I was like I had to make some sprite art for a project we were working on at the time, and I was like, okay, I'll just include this other tree thing that I had because like because it's there, and I'm not gonna just go through the effort of deleting it because it was part of what I did during the day, even though it's like my least favorite thing I've done this entire month. I think it's stupid looking. And my friend is like, oh, I love this tree that you made. It was so cool. And I'm like, well, I'm glad that at least one of us, because I really considered taking that off because I thought it looked dumb. I thought it wasn't really that worth it. So, I mean, again, it's just kind of restating the idea that people, no, I'm not saying like go with the bad ideas because some of them will stick. That's clearly not what I'm saying. That is a really bad way of...
People like different stuff, though.
Yeah, people like different things, and you'd be surprised, if you have any inkling like that it might land with some people. You might want to, A/B test or check if, some people are kind of into something, because it might be worth pursuing, even if you yourself don't get a feeling for like, oh, just because you don't like it doesn't mean there's no value or worth to it.
Yeah, it's just hard to know without asking somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're the only one looking at it, you're the only one evaluating it.
Yeah.
Only one opinion.
Exactly. With that, actually, I'm kind of curious. Are there disagreements that you and Kyle have about like I don't like this or do like this that you guys have had when developing things for Deleveled?
All the time. Which is good because it makes it a better game as opposed to just one of us were having all the say on everything.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, generally speaking, Kyle has been, and he's been right about this almost all the time. He thinks that the game, leading up to now, has been kind of too hard. And when I'm making all the levels and I'm playing them and playtesting them and doing all that stuff, and but I also sort of know what to do.
You're doing. Yeah.
It doesn't seem that hard to me. In fact, and I think
until you see somebody struggling, and you're like,
so like I've heard that this is a hallmark of level design and game developer, that like you always think your game is too easy.
Yeah.
And that's like basically never the case. You would be like making some unfathomably easy video game for a game developer to correctly assess that it is too easy. So in a lot of cases, Kyle has just been able to give me feedback by just playing through levels and saying like, I don't know, I had to look up the solution to this one, and I spent like 30 minutes on it. And like I think that's really important. So I think that if I had handed that level to somebody who's like never really played the game before and they spent 30 minutes on it and got frustrated, that's not really the right context. Like I want you to, I'm kind of assuming that if it's a later level, you've been playing the game for an hour or two and you are pretty much familiar with the rules at that point. And so to give it to Kyle, who is pretty familiar with the rules and the physics and all that, and even if he's still finding it too hard, or like, honestly, it's
and he's willing to put up with it for a different reason.
Yeah, and and too hard is it's even a better outcome than just not that fun.
Yeah.
Like if it's too hard but it's sort of rewarding, then that's fine. That can be fun.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's not fun, then it sucks. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not fun.
Right.
So in a lot of cases, Kyle has done a pretty good job at pushing back on some of the levels that haven't been very fun, and I like to think that I've either do
you do the same for him?
Well, I mean, like in terms of the programming, when he's kind of implementing new features and stuff, like he's been very, very amenable to my like,
okay,
well, I was expecting this to work this way, and I think it's better if it does that. And I know I didn't really give you any guidance on that up front, so thank you for taking my phone call anyway.
Sure. Sure.
Just stuff like that. But yeah, overall, it means it's going to be a better game when you have more eyeballs and disagreement. I think it's important to have like, it's hard to share a vision, but I think we do. But it can be hard to share a vision, but you can still have like good disagreement about stuff, and it forces you to actually think about the essence of like the little feature you're implementing, or the reason you designed a level a certain way, or stuff like that. Stuff that you may not have top down considered. It may have just like sort of come out like, oh, this should be this in this level, and this feature should exist like this, and that's it.
Right. Like what is expected and standard to you might not be so for somebody else, obviously.
Yeah, it forces you to ask. It forces you to answer the why a lot more.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Now, what is your exact? How would you describe your exact role on Deleveled? Like side to side with Kyle here.
It's all fluid.
Isn't it always?
He is definitely the lead programmer on things. I've done a little bit of programming, but not. I mean, very little compared to what he has done.
Okay.
And I have done just about all of the level design and audio.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then we kind of collaborate on the art. Neither of us are artists, so it's mostly squares and stuff like that. But we like the way it. Well, yeah, we like the way it looks. We think it works fine for this game.
No, I agree. I like it. It's charming.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, like I'm the one who posts most of the stuff on Twitter. But he streams his development every Tuesday and Thursday. So he definitely has a little bit of outreach like that.
Is this through his Twitter or?
Yeah, well, on Twitch.
On Twitch, okay.
Toaster.
Streams, okay, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, those are kind of the roles. Generally speaking, I make level decisions, he makes programming decisions, and we both argue over artistic decisions.
That's actually one of the reasons I kind of thought of you to bring on to the show, because Nick and I have a very similar dynamic where I'm all programming and he's all design.
Yeah,
like design. Art, so yeah,
there's a few differences, of course, that you're doing music, but we have a kind of similar dynamic going on there.
Right.
For sure.
Generally, we respect each other's like paradigms, where it's like, well, you do this and I do that, and while I might disagree, I kind of defer to this decision here because I don't know any better about this. Like I might have opinions about this, about the resulting outcome, and sometimes that might actually be more important than the implementation of it. So in some cases, it is actually important to get an opinion of somebody who's not an expert in that category.
Especially when I'm building tools for that person.
Well, yeah. So I mean, like, totally. Obviously, yeah. It's definitely been an interesting kind of, like, throughout our projects, not just Breakpoint, but it definitely has been an interesting, I guess, kind of process learning how to go back and forth about what we need from each other and how to go about asking for it.
Yeah, it's
just the process of game development in general, like, and working with another person. Like, I feel like that's probably one of the biggest things about that I felt. One of the biggest things, anyways, that I felt it makes indie development hard is, like, outside of the structure of being financially obligated to stick together because you're somebody's coworker and they're yours, and you just have to work it out for the company's sake. You don't have that kind of luxury in an independent game development setting where people they're not stuck to you in any way. They could just leave at any time because especially if you aren't in a contractually obligated situation to each other, you guys are just developing some sort of passion project. Those things can fall apart real easily if you guys don't have established boundaries and responsibilities with each other, and you guys don't have a stake in each other either. That's where it gets really difficult to kind of organize, like, so what are people doing, and, like, can I even push if somebody's being irresponsible about doing what they're supposed to be doing or not doing what I expected them to do?
Right.
Like, I think that's the bigger thing is, and I think that's what makes me kind of respect when developers are actually really able to be really disciplined with not just themselves, but their schedule and their time, and their respect to other people's schedule and time, because that's super hard too. But because that, in general, that just shows like a massive capability to compromise for the better good of the product, in this case the game. Like, they are more disciplined than thinking about themselves only and their personal comfort in developing the game. Like, oh, it would be easier if this person just did this thing for me, or if we could just make this decision and it was my call. Like, that, of course it would be easier for you, but, like, that's not easier for everybody else, and that just makes it harder for everybody else. And if you ever want to work with anybody else, you have to consider somebody else's input on lots of things.
Yep.
You also might have to consider the fact that you might be wrong on some stuff, and you'll have to just kind of take that in stride, because if you're really actually invested in the quality of the game, you just have to accept that you're not right all the time about the things, even if it's just a matter of preference. Like, oh, you might be right about a lot of things because your expertise lies in that area, but you still need to be willing and mature enough to turn that focus over to another person and say, like, this is okay, I might not like this, but you say this is maybe preferential or better, or different is better, or something like that. And to be able to turn that around into something beneficial for the development of the game is something very key, I think, to independent game development, because like I said, working with other people is already hard enough. Doing so without any strings attached is even harder, without any structure. So,
and then lay on top of that the difficulty of just doing the game itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why game development is hard, folks.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, I think, because even if you have two very good, well accommodating individuals, you might not even like work well together because you just don't like each other. Like, you could just be like, oh, we're both good guys, we just don't like the same things. Like, he wants to make an MMO and I want to make an FPS. Like, that's it. Like, we want to make different things. That's actually what I've seen a lot in say, for example, the Seattle indie scene. Like, I've seen a lot of really talented people, but people who want to make different things. So, like, there definitely are people out there who are like, I'm looking for this sound designer, I'm looking for this gameplay designer, and then I'm listening a little further, and they're like, oh, but I want to be able to make this game, or I want to do this, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. It's actually that there are strings attached here. You have requirements basically to your partners. You have things you need out of them, and that kind of is just the reality. When you have personal preferences, there's any number of things you could be making with. When you decide to make a game, you can make any number of things, right? You could just start making any game you want to, good or bad, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But when you start the exploratory period, you can be making anything. So it's important to pair up with people for whom will agree on the path you're going to take, especially early on.
You know what this whole thing has given me a big appreciation for?
What's that?
Project managers.
I know. I remember during the jam there was one, and like at least one person kind of talking about promoting themselves as a project manager. And I remember several people said during the postmortems, they were just like, I really appreciated having a project manager.
Yeah,
really appreciated having somebody there.
I guess you meant the jam we made Breakpoint at, or?
No, I think so. I think there was one prior, but
one of the jams in Seattle, I guess.
Yeah, one of the. I think it was the one we made Dead Signal on.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we've so you kind of invent your own, like, okay, so neither Kyle nor I are project managers at all.
Yeah.
So we've had to invent our own process, which ultimately, like, it eventually becomes good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
it definitely requires iteration, and it requires.
I think it depends on how you define eventually.
Yeah,
I guess so. But like eventually I'm not coming up with a word, but it eventually takes the shape and it works fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it would have been nice to have a more top-down look at that, before a couple of months had gone by and we had sort of lost track of what we were both working on.
Yeah. Right.
Honestly, if anything, we probably spend too much time talking, but I think that's a good problem to have. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Because we're always talking about the game when we do.
Right.
It's definitely better than, like I've been in jobs where I just feel like, I'm just at my desk and I don't really interact with people, and my boss doesn't only talk to me once every couple of weeks or whatever. Yeah. And like that's not fun.
Right, exactly. You still want to be connected to people on the project and feeling like your input has a say in what's happening.
I think it definitely helps in a project like this where we both are, just not even financially, but just creatively invested in the outcome.
For sure.
So we both have a vision that usually overlaps pretty decently for the end product, and so it's we like talking about it, and we like bouncing ideas off of each other and thinking about, like, well, is this appropriate for the game, or is this a different game? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, have you had to shelve certain things because it didn't feel de-leveled enough, and you just were like, well, maybe this is just another category of game, but we might want to pursue this if we ever wanted a partnership outside of de-leveled?
Kind of thinking about So I was saying earlier that the game originally was more of like a precision platformer.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of the levels, even once we had the light switch stuff ready to go, a lot of the levels were still pretty dexterity based.
Okay.
And so
sounds like it was your doing.
It was my doing, for sure. Definitely my doing. And
do you prefer? You know what? Actually, as a person who's probably done challenges like that, from like speedrunning challenges like that, you that may be telling, I think, of why you prefer to be able to have, or at least think in that way, that like, you've got to do it very precisely in this way and within a very small time frame. I don't know if that actually tracks, but I don't know.
I'm definitely someone who doesn't mind that kind of very fast, rapid repetition of troll games, as long as it's clear what I'm trying to do.
Right, yeah.
And like, as long as it's clear that what I'm trying to do is actual progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, in a puzzle game, that's not always the case.
Right. That is an important point to have, is actually knowing whether or not what you're trying to do is actually beneficial to the end goal.
And so I would say that in our game, we've dialed down the amount of like troll repetition type of stuff, but there's always trade-offs where like there are definitely levels in this game where you activate a couple of switches, but you're not actually making progress towards the goal.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it's hard to know that, and so it's this different type of problem solving.
I saw the stream where Escape was in showcase where you're in the bad state. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's kind of easy in our game to get into a state where you can't exactly finish the level,
and you actually don't know.
But you don't know.
Like
it's
what
not
you're trying to do. Yeah.
It's not necessarily obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not obvious until it's obvious.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. But some of those hardest levels, though, so generally speaking, those are not in the main line, like the main campaign.
Sure,
game,
yeah.
But they have kind of survived as bonus content, which is sort of like...
are we talking like B-sides or something here?
Yeah, you could think of them like B-sides.
Okay.
In fact, that's actually a really good way to think about. So we have this dichotomy of bonus levels and secret levels.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They're kind of the same thing, but all the bonus levels are they kind of they're shaped like a different level in that same world.
Okay, yeah. So there's obvious similarities to each other.
Yeah, they're designed to be obviously similar and evocative of a different level, but the switches are placed in much more heinous locations.
Okay.
They're significantly harder in, I think, all cases.
And these were all the first levels you made of them.
Yeah, pretty much. They were definitely...
That's your speedrunner coming out, I guess.
Honestly, probably half of them were supposed to be the actual
main levels.
And then the other half were kind of, not contrived exactly, but like I started with something I liked and then said like, how can I make this crazy?
Yeah.
And then the secret levels that we have in the game don't have any light switches at all. It's just go from start to finish and that's it. But they do have that precision platforming. That's when the troll comes out. So that was kind of like Kyle's... Kyle, first of all, made the right decision that the game shouldn't be that hard in general. But that was also like a nice compromise for me that like, but if you need that outlet, here it is. Just
exactly.
Go do whatever for the bonus levels.
Right, yeah. And you can be as confused as you want, but it was kind of a journey you as a player embarked on and chose to embark on.
We didn't force you to take that path.
Right, exactly,
You decided to get
You decided this punishment upon yourself.
This is your fault now.
Obviously they're beatable. Like you can, they're all, you can win through all of them. It's just they're all obviously harder than the traditional levels are. So is there like a baseline difficulty that that you guys are keeping track of throughout the entirety of the game? Then, as you like, this feels hard, and is there some way to track and meter that out, or is that just a sort of feeling-based thing?
Yeah, it's been mostly qualitative for us. Okay. We've got some analytics in the game, but we, to be honest, haven't used them very much. We use them a lot to time demos. So like when we make a demo, we want to keep it to like a 10 to 15 minute type of experience. So that helps a lot. But in terms of the overall game, I think that's something that we could improve on for the next one. That like,
gotcha.
Just sort of take analytics a little more to heart to really understand like.
Well, you're going to get a lot of feedback whether you like it or not.
Yeah, right.
Once you release the game, so.
I'm so excited to learn what the internet has to say.
Yes, yeah, and they have no stake in you.
I'm just kidding, internet. I love you.
No.
I know a lot of
mixed feelings.
I know a lot of you internets are listening right now. I love you.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've been anxious about for this game festival. It's like
I'm
first
looking
time.
forward to it, to be honest.
I'm looking forward to it for the most part, for sure.
Yeah.
But, allow me some anxiety.
I am, in all seriousness, I'm really
understand.
looking forward to people enjoying the game. I mean, I hope people enjoy it, but I have enough evidence. We've been to enough shows that we see that people like this game. That I know it's going to happen, and I'm just excited for that we can finally like really share the game and see people play it and be interested by it and not know, maybe look at it, not know what's going on, but then they sort of learn about it. And I don't know, I'm excited for that whole thing. And obviously there's going to be some negative feedback, and that's totally fine. That's just part of the deal.
On a very tangential note, but somewhat related, I'm watching this replay of a high score run of somebody who played the demo, and he's occasionally he'll just like spin in place when there's nothing else.
I know, I saw that.
I just love that from people. Like I love just seeing people have
flair.
Yeah,
well, the fact that your recordings actually record that. The fact that it actually does record it, because I mean, like a lot of replay systems only do like qualitative, like anytime you do something meaningful, they will only record that, but you actually do it in a different way enough to actually record.
Yeah, to capture just like the silent moments like that.
I like people being able to have some sort of expressiveness in this case, because it can be a little bit difficult in replay systems to kind of come through, because like I said, a lot of them can just be like the only meaningful choices come through in the replays.
I can tell this guy knows what he's doing too. He's using light and heavy attacks at the right times.
Wow, insulting to people who are playing this game.
Oh, come on, you know what I'm saying.
Just kidding. I know. I definitely anticipated people to just like. So this is the part, Patrick, where like you're saying like, oh, it's way harder. We know like there's gonna be people who pick up our game, and just like wreck it completely, and we're just like, yep, I know. Like I was a tester for years, so I know. Like I know what it's like to have somebody else be better at your game, better than the developer of the game. Like I know what that's like, because they spend more time or understand it better than you do, for one fundamental reason or another. Because you're not always developing for yourself, because you kind of can't. You're not supposed to develop just for yourself. That's right. As you said earlier in the stream, where you're supposed to be taking into account. Wow, nice score.
Well, that was a bug. Don't worry about that.
We'll just ignore that. We'll look at that later. You're supposed to be able to account for a lot of other people's tastes, and to the degree where other people might actually fit that to a T, you might have some people for whom are just like very well attuned to what you're trying to do in the game and understand from a player's perspective how to take advantage of it, play it very well. I have no doubt that's going to happen in Deleveled too. Like that, there's definitely going to be people who just like beat it on the first run and say like, it was so easy.
Man, have you played Deleveled? Like, I don't know about that.
I know. I know. There's definitely going to be some people who say that for some of the levels.
For sure.
Whether or not they say that about all of the levels is debatable and highly, highly unlikely. I mean, almost any game you could say that for. It's likely you'll have some people be attuned to specific aspects of it, but not in the entire package. It's unlikely, because generally you're trying to fill a game with enough content that to justify people sticking around for long enough to actually to be challenged at some point during their play experience.
And I think for us that's kind of what the bonus and secret levels were all about.
For sure.
Because I like to think that we give you, it's pretty reasonable to get through Deleveled just straight away. Sure. We figure it'll be like 5 hours or something like that. But
like a Mario game, right? Like you don't have to get all the stars.
Right, exactly. But if you liked it and you just wanted more, then you can challenge yourself with it with the stars. And but we really didn't want to do this thing where we like kind of give you this star, but then you don't get to do anything with it.
Sure.
So it was kind of imperative for us that like, if we're gonna have some type of perfection metric, it needs to be worth something.
Right.
Like,
So what you're talking about, just to clarify for anybody who's listening, it's because you use stars similar to Mario, where you use them to unlock levels. But
exactly.
you can have an extraneous amount of stars in cases where you go back and do a level and you beat it, but now you don't know what those stars are unlocking anymore because you've already unlocked many of the levels. So the stars are still going towards what it sounds like you're saying is they still go towards the bonus levels of the B-sides, essentially.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And then in the case of the bonus levels, you know, if we figured that if you're going to the trouble of unlocking these and you like want that more content, that kind of helped justify the non-limitation of difficulty that Kyle gave me. It's like, all right, you think you're so good at this? How about this? Yeah, you like that level, don't you?
Yeah. As you've been developing Deleveled, has there been anything that you've played or that has changed your mind about how, like, what you wanted to do with Deleveled, or has it relatively remained the same as throughout the, I think, 2 years that you've been developing this game?
I think it always helps inform, just approaches to things. But like I've played, so I played Baba Is You a bit. I'm not as far into it as I should be, but like, I guess that game, and along with feedback that we got from friends, it helped me come off this idea that you don't get to go to level 7 until you beat level 6. So the way that we do it in Deleveled is you kind of unlock worlds at a time, and a world has 10 levels in it. But if you get stuck on a level, you can always just quit and go to a different one. And initially, I wanted it to be a totally linear experience.
Sure, yeah.
Partially for level design reasons, just I want to make sure that I can assume you have some knowledge. But
yeah.
But also just because, I don't know, I probably have too black and white a view on this, but I just think, like, you don't get to go to level 13 till you beat level 12.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, I mean, when you're developing, you want to have a more clear idea of what the player's going to go through, right? Like, you're like, how can I make level 13 harder than 12 if you can just jump straight from 11 to 13? That will be a weird experience, and I can't account for that. And so the more permutations you have of that, that becomes a very difficult thing to account for from a balance standpoint.
And so I learned when I started asking, like, especially some of my speedrun buddies, which I thought was actually really interesting demographic for this, because those are people who love, I mean, they, at least in this way, like challenge in their game.
Right.
They decided to take a game to its perfectionist ideal.
Right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
I asked them, like, well, how do y'all feel about being able to quit levels and then just go to other levels instead? And they said, well, one of them had really great feedback. He said, I like it, but I don't do it. I impose upon myself to go in whatever I think that the developer intended order is.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I like that it's available to do.
Right.
And I think we really took that to heart. That actually is what ultimately really convinced me that Kyle was right, that we needed to open up, like, ditch the linearity a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I was recently playing Baba Is You, and I just got like totally stuck on a level, and like in that game is in particular, it makes me feel so useless as a player. Like, as like somebody.
They don't say it's challenging for no reason. It's actually a challenging game.
I think of myself as relatively intelligent. I just can't figure out some levels in that game. And then it makes me very happy that the way that they've done it is you can go to other levels. Generally speaking, there's always something else unlocked. Yeah,
you can kind of refresh that's kind of necessary, right? To refresh your brain, to give yourself a little bit of a break, to walk away from a puzzle.
Especially as, we started getting some feedback on the later levels in our game where people have that reaction. They're just not there with the level. And that sort of helped emphasize, like, people are going to get stuck on some of these levels. Like, it's just not that 20 minutes that they spend on a level, it's just not going to be their 20 minutes that day.
Totally.
And so they generally are going to they're going to want something else. Like, they want to play the game, they just don't want to play that level anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like, that, I think that's a perfect way of putting it. They're still interested and they're engaged because they want to play your game. They just don't want to play that level. They don't want to play that repetitive aspect of that game because they need to walk away and I think they just need to refresh their brain. So I like it definitely, especially if you don't want to kick a person out of the game, because definitely there are times where, you know, walking away, just turning off the game is a solution. But when a person still wants to be in the game, they want to play parts of the game, it gives them something else to do within the game. I think that's what I liked about this. Kind of reminds me very tangentially about Night in the Woods, about how there's like little very benign mini game in there that you just get to play at the end of your day. That's like totally unrelated to everything that you're doing. It's like Night in the Woods is a very like platformy, visual novel-y kind of game, but that game is just like purely like a dungeon crawler game. It's like action-oriented dungeon crawler.
Oh, it's a game in the context of the world.
In the context of the world.
Gotcha.
Of the game world. It's just like a mini game basically you get to play, and the way I phrased it was I was like, this is just kind of for those people who are like, okay, we get it. You probably want to just sometimes play a game and just like, we're not going to kick you out and force you to play another game, but you can play this in our game and play it at the end of the day, because contextually that's kind of what you would be doing anyways, right? You'd be at the end of your day, you kind of want to break from all of your sleuthing and detective work and running around the town and being a nuisance to everybody, and then you could just kind of relax and play at home on your faux PC in game and play this funky little dungeon crawler. All right, well, yeah, it's kind of just like a little funny little bonus. We're approaching a bit of the end here, but before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yes, I would like all of you to keep an eye on my video game that I'm working on called Deleveled. It's a palindrome, so you only need to know how to spell half of it. That's my joke. Deleveled. We're on Steam. We're coming out on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation also, hopefully this summer. We feel good about this summer. We've said autumn 2019 before, but summer 2020 seems legit this time around. You can follow us on Twitter at Deleveled Game, and that's pretty much it. You can find Kyle and me through that account also. Cool. Yeah, please pay attention to Deleveled. Buy Breakpoint, but pay attention to Deleveled.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. They have a demo up right now, so you guys can check it out.
Yes.
All right, well, we're going to be back. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with Breakpoint After Dark, essentially.
Pizza
for another hour. Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back. All right, welcome back to the... Oh no, I hear myself on...
What the hell are you doing, man?
I don't know.
Are we professional streamers or what?
No, we are totally professional streamers.
I've got what? 11 followers on Twitch.
We're back to the Breakpoint developer live stream. So we're going to be broadcasting ourselves playing a little bit of Breakpoint. Please join us in the chat if you'd like to, either through Steam or through Twitch. Say hi. We're going to be just talking. I still need to mute you.
Oh, really? Also, I just noticed Patrick is still, in fact, on the guest list. Terrible. So I'm probably gonna take him off of there real quick, just so people are not confused about what's going on.
We got back in, and then we totally did not even have... We didn't even troubleshoot ourselves. That's awesome.
This is like the first time I've streamed for real, so... Give me 1 second.
Actually, I'm not really sure why I do hear you, because I wasn't hearing myself.
Oh, you know what? You probably need to mute the in Discord.
I thought I did, but...
Well, how bad is it?
Wait. Okay, I'm not muted, right?
No, you're fine. Am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep playing. Because now that Patrick's off stream, my job is done.
Okay.
Anyway, to explain to some people, our event announcement listed 6 to 7, or 5 to 6 rather, but now we're also doing 6 to 7 because our producer kindly offered us a pizza if we continue streaming for an hour. So now that that's on the record, he better keep that promise.
Okay.
You good now?
Yeah. Yikes. Awesome.
Alright.
Okay, super awesome developer live stream go. Let's just start this over again. Welcome to the Breakpoint After Dark live stream. We're just two devs making a game. Oh my gosh, Steve, thank you. Yes, we're totally pizza sellouts. Yes. Well, I mean, it's just nice to...
It's just nice to, yeah,
it's just nice to hang out or whatever.
Show off the game we've been working on.
Yeah, we're just... If anybody happens to come across watching us play this game, they'll at least have some live people talking in their ears rather than a repeated video of this game playing over and over again.
And are you firing shots at anybody right now?
No, I'm saying like when you go to the Steam page, it's just gonna have the video playing over and over again. That's just the same video playing over and over again. But at least here you have the chance to listen to developers shoot the breeze or whatever. So it's a little bit more dynamic, I think, than just watching. It just feels more community based,
no, I
right?
agree. Don't worry.
It's like it's active and there's like people here and it's like alive. We all need a little bit more
just
community
making
these
banter,
days.
don't worry.
Yeah, it's very hard to feel connected to people these days, considering how much I've been inside this whole time.
All of us, yeah.
I know, it's crazy, man. Crazy. So yeah, we're really just going to be shooting the breeze and kind of just talking and not really having anything informative except for talking a little bit about the game and maybe about ourselves, so maybe some informative things if you're into that. Yeah.
I swear I perform better off stream than on stream. It's the performance anxiety.
It's those eyes, man. They're watching you. They're judging you. I'm judging you, if anything. So know that. Know that your judgment does not go unseen.
Wait. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Whatever.
I don't know. Actually, I was half saying things and half trying to read the channel. Gotcha. Anyways, let's go over a little bit of our history here.
Wait, somebody it's actually Amlagao that is asking, yeah. What's your strategy to get to the top of the leaderboard?
Well, he wants to. He's instigating some conversation here, so go
I'm
ahead.
Just too good.
Explain.
That's how I'm getting to the top of the leaderboard. Good. That's no, it's a combination of a bunch of stuff. I mean, obviously, just having played the game so much at this point, being a developer, I know like a lot of random tricks. One of the big things that I think people might not know about is that if you clear a wave, it'll spawn a new one. So at the very beginning, it's kind of important to just be clearing waves as fast as possible to be getting multiplier, so you're continually spawning new waves. But I don't know, just there's a bunch of tricks. I don't want to spoil everything for you, but there's one I can toss out.
Yeah. There's like being conscious of from an abstract standpoint, being conscious of where when your break is going to happen is one of those things. Like if you know that you want to like clear a wave with the break, sometimes that's good, but sometimes you don't want to do that. There are instances where you want to clear the wave with just an attack instead of a break.
Yeah, and one awesome thing I've actually been noticing people do, so they've realized this, if you attack and then swing your right stick around, you'll get a much wider arc.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen people like using that very purposefully in the replays.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of go into that in reality because of the fact that we're playing the demo and not the full game. The full game has a few weapons that are not on display for the demo. Zap for that, he says, can you all talk about the combat system depth beyond different weapon types? I think some of the things that we're doing in terms of how understandable the game is, we put in a lot of time and effort to making sure that the game is how to say, it's very approachable for people who understand what twin stick shooters are like from a traditional perspective, but also we'd like to be able to say that what we're doing in terms of trying to onboard the player strictly through user experience and UI and feedback is at least half the work that we're doing too. So there are times where we don't explicitly have tutorials that tell you that you should be doing one thing or another, but that you feel like you should just because of the way that you sort of gotten feedback from it. Like, for example, if you've broken something and then you notice that every time you destroy something, something else happens, like it spawns bullets. That's one of the enemies, for example. They spawn bullets when you destroy them. You might not always want to... You want to watch your position, for example, about where you are and when you break those enemies. Like breaking a bunch of those at once, you might guess is going to spawn a bunch of bullets. So if you use a break on a bunch of those enemies,
those red
enemies, yeah, these red mines, you're going to cause a bullet hell to happen. It's just going to happen. Like you're going to get a curtain of bullets around you. So that's something you instigate yourself. So if you know that that's going to happen to you, you can kind of control that a little bit better by knowing when your break is going to happen and controlling it a little bit more, because, for example, the heavy attack takes a little bit more durability from you, so you can avoid using some of the durability or purposefully cause a break to cause the break to happen in a smaller area or in a different position. Or at a different time. So that's like one of the strategies you can use. You can just, I mean, apart from just the different weapon mechanics, you can definitely just learn a lot of the enemy patterns. Just knowing how the enemies behave and when they fire, or if they fire, or how many bullets if they do, and how they move. Yeah, there's a lot of little things that the enemies do. These are obviously not.
They're very basic,
they're not
they follow,
complicated enemies. I mean, they're just shapes. We didn't go through a lot of creating too much AI. They have a few patterns, but they don't do anything obscene that is like, what, they have a brain behind that? They're doing something obscene. A little bit complicated. Well, I mean, like, maybe not that. That's not what I mean. But anyway, they don't do anything too crazy, I guess. So like they do something that challenges you, but they have a pretty predictable moveset. So
it's mostly about how they combo together. Anyway.
Yes,
like,
it is absolutely more about
simple.
how they combo. Exactly, yeah. It's a lot more about how they combo together than anything else. So knowing those are a few things. Like, one of the reasons why I hesitate to go too much in depth about this. Not that I couldn't go into depth about it. It's just more like some of the fun of the discovery of some of the mechanics, I think. We'll just kind of let slip from time to time. Like you might notice that he did something particular there that some people might not be aware of that you can do in the game. So just be aware that, like, just because you went through the tutorial doesn't mean you've seen everything that you can do in the game. There's at least a couple other things outside of just the complexity of understanding the weapons and the enemies that you can actually literally do, like functions in the game that you can do. So like it's just understanding that you may not have a complete grasp from the get-go, and there are some interesting things you could do. You could still get pretty far without throwing yourself into enemies. Maybe if you don't just throw yourself into an enemy, you might be able to survive a little bit longer. Yeah.
I told you, man, it's performance anxiety.
Well, we definitely made this game to be accessible to people who look at a game like this and have played a game like Geometry Wars, or Nova Drift, or Beat Hazard, or any number, various numbers of twin stick shooters. Anybody who's played those games, you should be able to transfer over those skills over to our game, and then just kind of lay over the specific knowledge about the game as you learn it to perform better. So it's not we're not trying to be esoteric by any means. In fact, if anything, we're trying very hard to be as explicit as we can without destroying the flavor of discovery.
It's So that's yeah. I mean, it's a very long-winded way to say go play the demo and find out for yourself where the combat complexity is.
Yes, I should have just said that. But you know, we do have an hour to burn, so maybe
yeah, gotta talk about something.
Yeah, gotta say something. Gotta say something with some flavor. Can't just have a bland dessert for the after dark. Gotta have something. Gotta have something to say. I'm actually kind of curious. Ed, did you play anything while we were making this game that informed you about? Because like one of my general questions, I felt like I was going to ask a bunch of people throughout our
guest
live stream
yeah.
was going to be that one of the questions I asked Patrick, and that was if there was anything that they played that informed their thoughts about the games that they were making at the time, or their process that they were. And for me, I know that I actually bought a few games. Like I remember having played Geometry Wars 1 and a little bit of 2, but I didn't actually own 3, and so I actually just bought that on Steam and played a little bit of it, and then replayed Beat Hazard and Nova Drift. That's why I mentioned that. Is there anything that you actually played to kind of inform you?
I mean, there were a few things, of course. I will admit, I'm sure this is heresy for a lot of people watching, but I had not played Geometry Wars 1 until we started making this game.
Right,
so
yeah. I mean, a lot of the conceptual design decisions were up to me, and I was making a lot of those references myself, so
that was definitely something I picked up just to know. But I mean, honestly, like, the roots of this game go back further. So Nick and I, when we met, both of us were playing Hades by Supergiant Games. And honestly, like, even though it doesn't show explicitly in the design of this game, I think there's quite a lot of like that action RPG DNA in here that kind of informs a lot of our decisions here about how the game feels. Otherwise, I mean, we played Beat Hazard 2. I think I picked it up to try it out because we were working on this.
Are you talking about Beat Hazard Deuce 2, or are you talking about Beat Hazard also?
Oh no, Beat Hazard
also.
Beat Hazard number 2, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Because I had played 1, but I wanted to kind of see what they had done and to advance it forward.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think those are the main ones. But I'm the programmer. Like I don't really get my programming knowledge from looking at other games, so it's probably not as much. I didn't pick up as much as you did. So
yeah, there was a few. I mean,
you said Geometry Wars 3. Like, what else?
3. Well, I mean, like, there was other games I played for various other reasons. I mean, like, I played Dust Force for the leaderboard features. Oh
yeah, I guess I should say. I should mention like Devil Daggers, of
Devil
course.
Daggers is a big inspiration behind that, and I think you were
driving force behind that.
Probably a driving force, like a bigger driving force behind that, and I think I'm glad because of that, because that's something that kind of slipped my mind. When it came down to having to come up with some games that would inform us. I mean, like, in reality, if anybody asks any game developer, like, what inspires you? And a lot of the generic answers, not necessarily every game developer says this, but a lot of game developers say, well, everything, just play anything, and not even just games, but like watch theater, watch movies, read books. Yeah, and that goes without saying, and it has to be reiterated here that I agree with that statement. Essentially, a lot of what informs a lot of the decisions that we're making isn't just oriented around games. It's really oriented around our experiences as people, and we're trying to make a fun experience for people. We're not, this isn't just for hardcore video game players that know what Geometry Wars is, and anybody else who doesn't know that can GTFO. Like, that's not what we're trying to make. It's not the kind of game we're trying to make. We are trying to make a challenging game so that those kinds of people can still find some fun in the game, but we're not catering explicitly and only towards those kinds of people. We want a broad range of people to enjoy the game as well. So, I mean, like, people who are not good at these kinds of games, we still want you to, enjoy and have fun with a game where your weapons explode and there's cool flashing effects and kind of reminds you of arcades in the 80s. We still want you to have
that
fun
experience
with the game. Yeah, we still want you to have that experience that's fun, and that doesn't just explicitly have to do with the challenge of the game and having to know every little aspect of it. So we're trying to cater to multiple audiences here, but we're definitely not we're trying not to exclude one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. On the media bit, I actually sort of remember, vaguely anyway, during the jam, there was one specific influence that you had cited for the explosions, because these weren't originally explosions, I think, in our mind. I mean, there was it was like someone.
What were they?
Maybe taking out their sword and like immediately, blurring into motion or something. I can't remember exactly.
Muramasa Demon Blade. What I had said was that originally I was saying one of the little things that they do there is the EI slash. So like when you like in Muramasa the Demon Blade, like you just switch to another blade and then they do that whole samurai thing where they flick it with their thumb. Yeah. And then like a slash appears across the screen and then the whole screen gets slashed with the samurai sword. So it's like it's this cool little thing. And that was one of the suggestions I had, was like when you were switching weapons in the original build of the game, in the jam version of the game, that was something that you could do. I don't know necessarily that was something that was referenced for the breaks though, because I mean like we definitely had a fairly strong idea early on that the breaks were like explosions. Maybe not explicitly were explosions, but we did think very early on, like when the weapon breaks, it needs to be cool for some reason or another. It basically very early on, if not in name, was basically an explosion. It was some sort of like emanating aura sphere of destruction. It just might have not been an explosion.
So explicitly, in words.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think after that, I mean, like I played a few other games. Like I'll just like I guess I played Thumper in the middle of this, so just because I was like interested with the way. Yeah, a bit the aesthetic, but not really. I mean, like, because they do some of the 80s noisy screen chromatic VCR, aberration kind of, VCR type of thing, like chromatic aberration going on. But I mean, like, not aesthetically in terms of like descending into the depths of hell kind of thing. And that's clearly like Devil Dagger's territory, and Thumper kind of owns that, but we don't quite explicitly. We're definitely just an arcade game.
Yeah, we're much more brighter and like carefree to some extent.
Yeah. We did play a little bit of Tormentor X Punisher, but that was more after the fact. That was like, we didn't really use any of that. That was sort of just like, oh, this is cool that this is like another twin stick shooter that came out later. I actually wasn't aware of it until the indie. I'm sorry, the Epic giveaway.
You're right. When it was free on Epic.
Yeah, when it was free on Epic. So like, I didn't even realize it was released in 2017, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago for sure.
Yeah, and it's a cool game. It's very interesting. It's a little bit different than our game in terms of style and.
Well, a little, maybe a lot in terms of style. Yeah. In terms of gameplay, I think it hews a little closer, but in terms of style,
but yeah, it was a game that I more played incidentally rather than something that informed any of our decisions. But it was cool nonetheless. But there's a few other games that I think I played. I think I agree with Hades being one of those games that, like, just in general informs our sort of top-down combat mentality about a lot of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, you'd be surprised by the amount of things that don't inform us. There's, like, I didn't play Geometry Wars 3, and I don't think a lot of the particular lessons from Geometry Wars 3 get carried over. Most explicitly because Geometry Wars 3 is very clearly, like, down the ancestry of Geometry Wars and adds in and layers a lot of features that you would expect from Geometry Wars, and ours is more of a pure arcade game. Yeah, it is definitely like, this is a super polished version of Geometry Wars with like lots of modes and lots of options and leaderboards across all of these things, and has a bot that you can level up, and it just has these things that are like very interesting. I mean, I think to that end, I mentioned Nova Drift, but I don't think any of the things I played and learned from Nova Drift apply to what we were doing with Breakpoint, because I think Nova Drift is more of a roguelike, and they control very differently. I think you have to, if I remember correctly, you have to actually press the left trigger to boost yourself throughout, so you have like tank-like movement, and you just spin around.
Much more explicitly
like,
a ship, I guess.
Yeah, it's more explicitly a ship. Oh, that actually reminds me. I mean, like, we were informed by, I was informed at least a little bit by a lot of Lambert's games. So, you know, even something as weird as like Lift Rousers, but much more explicitly something like Nuclear Throne, I think informed us about a lot of the engagements. So it's, you know, we're a little bit more heavy on the knockback and interrupt features because the way Nuclear Throne is it's still primarily range based, and even though you do have short range weapons, they're usually not designed to. They're not used in the same way that our game uses them.
Yeah, they're more of a fallback than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly because if you could use them with the same strength that our game presents them with, it would be just too overpowered because they have infinite ammo. Ammo is actually a thing in that game, so you do want to actually conserve ammo, and that's one of the reasons why you use a melee weapon. In our game, because there's no ammo, we generate a lot of our combat encounters around the idea that, like, well, you might not have any ammo, but you will be overwhelmed a lot of the time. Like, that's what makes it a little bit more balanced in that way.
Your ammo sort of ends up being the break charge.
Yes, loop. Yeah, just knowing how to organize your and kind of like form when you should break is kind of the flow of the game.
Right. Yeah, I actually, you mentioned Nuclear Throne and Lambert probably because of all the juice and like hit stun and hit pause and so on.
Yeah.
Actually, I've mentioned this to you before, but I'll reiterate for the stream. I find it so cool that it actually ends up becoming a bit of a feature more than it is just a polish item later on in the game. Yeah, because once you're getting overwhelmed, you actually need to manage the hit pause to be able to survive. It's like I just need to slow down the game right now so I can tell what's happening. Yeah, so you hit that trigger button, you spin the axe around, you're like, okay, now I can like see what's going on.
Yeah,
and it's like, wow, we didn't think about that when we were developing the game.
Yeah, it just wasn't something.
Just kind of happened.
It wasn't something that we explicitly put into the design docs or were conceptualizing out. It was more just a function of, you hit a guy, you pause for a little bit, and you just don't make it too long. But if you hit a bunch of guys, you pause a lot. And let's just make sure that it doesn't interrupt you too much. But it will, obviously give the flavor of you hitting a lot of guys. And obviously what that ends up happening is that ends up being kind of a boon to you as a player, is that you slow down just enough to realize, like, okay, there are a lot of guys. These guys are closing in real fast. I need to do something about this guy coming in around my tail. Like, it's
like, here's the exact point I need to move to the center of the storm.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of decisions you end up making where it otherwise would have been a split-second decision, and it's managed by your hit pause. Like, you hit a guy, you slow down time just enough to kind of get out of the way, or at least realize you should have gotten out of the way.
Right.
Like, that's something that actually is kind of a neat feature, and I do actually think that going forward, it's one of those things that will probably just like carry on because it ends up being serendipitously fortuitous to keep.
I think that was
so I do wonder about.
Sorry, keep going. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Is it serendipitously fortuitous?
I think serendipitous includes fortuitous. Oh man.
Oh, it's not an oxymoron then. It's more just like
redundant. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah, redundant. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. It just ends up being kind of a lucky, fortunate thing to keep on our plate when we're designing other games, because we're very focused on creating games with a lot of juice. That was actually something that I thought was funny during the jam, and I was glad about during the jams, because during the jam we were told a lot, like, oh, this game has so much juice, and I kind of don't like that word just because it just feels like icky to hear a lot, but it is a word that's used a lot because of Lambert's
talk.
Because of their talk. Yeah. And I think in spite of not really liking the association of the word, I agree with the sentiment. We put in a lot of juice in this game for explicit reason, for a lot of functional reasons. I value feedback a lot, so that the player knows what's happening, and it was our explicit intention to make sure that the player knows what's happening. There's no mistake. Like, you hit this guy, you killed him, you destroyed him, like, he blew up. Like, and also, like, it hit paused and the screen shook and particles are coming out. At any given time, most enemies are generating, anytime you hit them, like 3 to 5 particle types. And like, if not like actual like animations that they're like particle animations. So there's like various things that are happening in the background to make sure that players know what is going on and are associating actions that they're doing with the result that they're getting. Like that's an important thing to us, I think, is to make sure that it doesn't just feel fundamentally balanced, but also it just feels good to just play. One of the goals I wanted to make out of this was to have a game that just like feels you just want to play. In fact, in general, one of the goals I usually have with games that I try to make is that you just want to pick up to play for really no other reason but just to play it. You don't like, you're not really picking it up because you have some sort of daily login. Like a daily
Quest,
login that you have to fulfill, or because you have some sort of obligation to other people. It's just like you thought about it in the back of your mind that you were like, it was just cool to like hit guys and the explosions, and you just want to log in for that. I'm not saying that I want to make games that are as meaningless as just like you just want to see a kaleidoscopic array of effects.
Just dopamine hit.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I mean, I want to create meaningful games, obviously. Like, that is, I think, one of the bigger things that it's a bigger focus of mine than anything else. But that being said, those aren't mutually exclusive. You can have both of those things. You can have a game that is meaningful and still, like has good feedback. It just so happens that in general our game is Breakpoint is mostly just a fun game to play. Like this is more an aspect of the fact that Breakpoint is just almost explicitly purely an arcade-like experience, and we didn't want to muddle that with any other types of gameplay extrapolations that we could have done. I mean, we could have put a campaign in here about a pointer dot that escaped the GPS unit and is now fighting his way through an arcade cabinet. You can make any number of context stories if you wanted to. This could be a Wreck-It Ralph game for all we know. Like it's you can make any story if you want to. It's just we were like, it's not important for us to make a story about this game. Not that it isn't important in general, but it's just not important to us for this game. We're just kind of making a game that is an arcade game that's just fun to play. Like, we just want people to have fun when they play it. And it's okay you don't want to play it every day. It's not okay you don't want to play it to like log in and get your dailies. It's just fun. It's just you can load it in and play for 5 minutes, or for some reason if you want 5 hours. Like it. However short or however long you want. You're on the bus, you're waiting, you have 3 minutes left before your stop. Try to get your highest score. That's fine. Like, do that. It's okay. You've got a couple hours. You just want to take a break after work. You just want to relax and chill out and talk to people while playing Breakpoint. Do that. Like, we're doing that right now. That's totally a way of playing the game. I want to encourage people to play it however they want, but I am saying, like, no
final lore,
unfortunately. No Sephiroth, no One-Wing Angel, no confronting.
I've definitely thought about the lore behind this game just because it's a natural thing to try to puzzle out, but
it is funny to think about.
There's definitely no canonical lore, but I guess just by the name and like my programming experience,
that's true. That's
my
true.
canonical lore, my headcanon is that you're the breakpoint in a program, and you're stopping all these programs from running.
This is the first I've heard of that.
That's all I got.
That is an interesting interpretation. I actually didn't think about that. That's
it needs to be a red dot because Visual Studio, right?
Okay, interesting. You are Tron. You fight for the user. I mean, we had some very clear inspirations in terms of what this game will look like. Tron being one of them. But we don't create a story like Tron. There's some cool things that we try to evoke, but we don't clearly draw any parallels with any story that is happening in the background. That's up to you to create your meta story. That's for when the movie rights come in rolling.
Right.
When Ready Player Breakpoint happens.
We'll have waifus in that too. That's responding to a question in chat.
Yes, clearly, obviously. Clearly. So what are you doing right now, Ed? Are you actually trying to have you created a new high score since we
Yes,
logged
I actually
in?
have.
You did? Oh, okay.
And
actually,
people haven't broken my high score yet, and I'm already
your high
going up
score.
the
Okay.
leaderboard.
Well, you were top. It's just, did you create a new top or?
I did, yeah.
During the stream? Oh, you did?
Recently, yeah, like just an hour ago or so.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Right now, I'm just watching somebody's replays. Yeah, I mean, I figured I'd show off whoever's been playing the game and getting high scores. Show them on stream.
Sure. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, this is probably. I'm actually a little like this will probably hit me later, but it is nice to see somebody playing your game and then not entirely. Well, I'm not saying that people would disparage it, but I mean, like it is nice seeing people play your game and then suspecting that they're having fun. I mean, like they're playing this game hopefully with that idea, like, oh look, they're actually enjoying themselves and they're getting a high score and they played long enough to learn it. I mean, maybe they have some inherent natural talent for it. That's not something I would doubt. But
that's the thing I was saying earlier about you can tell that some of these people have actually learned the mechanics. Like you can tell they've been playing it for a little while, not for too long, but like they've learned some mechanics
long enough to learn some of the mechanics that are explicitly specific to this game or any game that we have some special. Obviously, we have some special tactics that are explicit to this game over any other game, but that's what makes it kind of interesting to watch. Some folks play this game is like, oh, you learned that this guy does this, or that you learn the timing for when a mine deploys its bullets. Those are the sort of fun things, actually.
I am kind of laughing at like I've actually seen that a couple of times now.
I know. Yeah, it's the gamer's instinct, right? Mash the controller.
Yeah, so you can find out what's going on.
Yeah.
See, like this person through the weapon.
Yeah,
It's cool. It's Oscar Langley.
Yeah. Some getting some Ava action in here. Is there anything you're excited for in the Steam Game Festival? I got a few games queued up actually for myself.
I definitely played a few already.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I mean.
God, I was putting together all of the thumbnails and everything for all of the upcoming.
Oh no, I mean.
And I was like, I need to sleep. I need to sleep for a little bit before.
I had suspected that with your weird schedule, you were just up all night or something when I talked to you.
I mean, I was obviously like goofing around, but I was, working on that stuff also. So.
Gotcha. But yeah, I mean, I played. I mean, I'll represent our publisher here for a second, I guess. I played Freshly Frosted.
Oh, nice. They have a demo up? I didn't realize.
Yeah, their demo's up.
Gotcha. I gotta key that up too.
Yeah, I haven't played Deleveled. We were just talking to Patrick, one of the developers there. He did send me a build. He did send me a build like much earlier. So I had played that like maybe last month. Yeah, gotcha. Happy little donut game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I actually, I want you to play that, Nick. They're doing some crazy rhythm stuff in that game.
Oh, neat. That makes me excited. That actually legit makes me excited. I didn't just say that for politeness.
Yeah.
I actually am looking forward to that. That seems pretty cool.
Like, our game does some stuff with these on-beat effects. You can see the cameras shaking a little bit every beat. Their game is, like, super... I don't know, like, juicy is the wrong word, but it just makes me happy.
There's some pretty cool things going on.
To, like, listen and watch it.
Neat. Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it.
So yeah, played that and then Sailforth and a few others.
Yeah. I saw RPS. Kind of they played a little bit of Sailforth. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll have to look to see if RPS played any of the other, like, Freshly Frosted or anything, or our game. But yeah, it was cool to be able to see them just scream a few things and then be like, I know those people. They played the game from people I know.
Yeah.
So, anything you're particularly, like, other than the ones you've played, anything you're queued up for that you haven't had a chance to, but you're looking forward to playing?
Yeah, I'm actually, what was it? The Riftbreaker is something I've kind of got queued up. I've been following their development.
You're not alone there.
What's that?
I think you're not alone there. I think there's a bunch of people who, actually, I had only seen it once on Twitter, and I was like, it seems interesting, and then when it was shown again during the Escapist Indie Showcase, I was like, what is this game? And then I realized, like, oh, this was a thing I saw like not too long ago. This no wonder it kind of caught my interest. It's the same thing that made me interested the first time.
Gotcha. Yes, I've been following their development on Twitter for a little while actually, so I'm interested to see what they've got going on there.
Gotcha. Yeah. 'Cause that's like a hybrid RTS
action
/ action. Yeah, it's like, and it has like a what's that genre? Tower defense type of mechanics,
definitely.
right?
I mean, I guess tower defense, I suppose, is a subgenre of RTS. So yeah, it's RTS tower defense.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, like the way you build your structures.
Oh,
yeah,
whoa.
I mean, like, yeah.
I just I was watching this person's replay and they just jumped way higher on the scoreboard. I'm gonna watch their new replay.
Oh,
Like
nice.
at the end, by the end of
Maybe
the
he
leaderboard.
saw. Maybe he
replay.
saw that. Yeah, maybe he saw that. He was like, "Oh, he's playing it. I gotta get it." They, maybe yeah, not he or she, but it's
Totally.
awesome.
So yeah, how about you?
Yeah, so Amligao is asking how are you actually doing that, the pulse
Oh, the
sync.
pulse sync?
Yeah, if you could explain that from a technical perspective.
Yeah, just really briefly. So we're using a middleware called Fmod. Gives you a lot of powerful tools to do sound design with. And one of the things they actually allow you to do is get an event every time the beat triggers on a song. So we're just hooking into that and then doing like a little camera bump and post-processing effect bump.
Yeah, a lot of it is
get
hooked
that.
into the post-processing component.
Yeah, it's it's definitely nice that we're doing this in Unity. That Unity has a lot of these tools built in, so we we just need to leverage them in creative ways.
Yeah. Yeah, because you asked about anything that I was looking forward to. I played a few things that I think I told to you, but anything that I was looking forward to, you mentioned Nuts. I still have to
Nuts.
play that. I saw
It's just this funny
I
name.
saw the trailer and I was like, that looks cute.
Yeah.
I should play that. I should play Nuts. It looks nuts, if you'll excuse me saying. I have to replay Ultra Kill actually, because I know that I played the demo originally before a bunch of these showcases appeared, so I want to see what's different.
Yeah, they actually added one level, not a chapter, but a level.
Oh, okay, nice.
So that's
yeah,
one
I'm looking forward to seeing any of the differences and then shooting some dudes with my sharpshooting skills.
Your coin gun.
Shooting my coin. I know. It's always questionable whether or not that's actually a good gun, but it's a satisfying thing to get correct. Shoot the coin, flip the coin, shoot it, and then just cause it to home in on an enemy's head. If anybody's aware of, Ultra Kill is like a Doom-like or Strafe-like. It's a retro. It's a retro-inspired FPS that has some fairly unique, interesting mechanics going on there. I really like the speed of the mechanics. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I want to try Rose City Games Floppy Nights. I've seen Paradise Killer get covered a bunch. I like the art, so I'm just like, sure, I'm looking forward to being inundated with this art, just surrounded with this art. I like it. Looks nice.
Dude, this person is actually awesome. I don't know if you saw that close scrape they got into, but they had a level 2 axe and were completely surrounded by darts and managed to get out of it.
Oh, nice.
I just love seeing the game played in this way.
Oh yeah, right. Actual good people.
Yeah.
Folks who seem to know what they're doing. That's cool. Yeah. It is. No, totally. I said that dismissively. I totally mean that. That is cool. I made it sound like I didn't actually care for that. I do actually. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome to be able to see people actually be good at the game. So I hope that person, whoever it is having fun. I hope anybody who's playing this game, good or bad, is actually, at least having fun, enjoying the process of learning, and then also just, even if they're not necessarily performing well, at least having fun with neat explosions and cool effects. I'm hoping that they're having fun with that at least. I think there's a few other things that maybe I might be looking forward to. But there are so many games in
the festival.
In the festival that it's like hard to keep track of, and
Absolutely.
like I said, I was like, I mean, some of these things were overlapping with the showcase, and I gave you
The
like my
showcase,
thoughts.
you mean?
Yeah.
Or I guess the various other showcases.
No,
you mean?
the other showcases. Yeah, many of the other showcases, because there's so many.
Like
there's
Guerrilla
just so many
Collective or
showcases.
PC Gaming.
Yeah, or
so
PC
on.
Game Show. Yeah, there's just like there's just so many. This not E3 is like I was about to say nuts, but I think I was like looking at that tile on my screen while I was thinking that, and I stopped myself
in your mind.
saying it. Yeah, the word was stuck in my mind.
I mean, regardless, it is the case that this Naughty 3 is
crazy.
nuts.
It is crazy the amount of games that are available right now, just for a variety of reasons. It is just, there's, oh my gosh, all the showcases, they're so full of like
good-looking games.
Yeah, good-looking games. I mean, like, I don't want to prop ourselves up, so I won't even mention it, but there's just so many cool like games being made, indie or not. Like I saw the PS, obviously the PS5 announcements, and you know, I mentioned to you the other day Kenna, and I was like, this looks cool. You know, I'm glad we can have games that look like this and are stylized like this, and obviously it's like kind of reminds me of Zelda because of that bow. It looks
the
like
animation.
Zelda, yeah. But and that's a positive comparison, by the way. I actually think that's awesome.
But to qualify.
There's I will anyway,
yeah.
But there's just so many different types of games coming out, AAA, indie, whatever styles, whatever. Like there's so many things to look forward to, and it's just so much to parse. I know I'm going to be busy throughout the next week. It really feels like, outside of all of our, you know, marketing efforts that we're going to be having, doing outreach and things like that, I'm also just going to be spending time actually playing some games and just having fun. I think this is a nice time to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world that's tough right now. So it's, you know, obviously it's complicated. And I don't want to say games are more important than that. So that's the first thing I will say about that. But I will say, you know, it's nice to be able to take a little bit of respite on the side while keeping those very important issues in mind. I'll say that.
No, it's definitely a very hard line to draw there. I mean, you like you said, you don't want to say games are more important, but it is important to take a break, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'll be definitely taking some breaks and at least have queuing up some things apart from even the stuff that I had said. I mean, like you had mentioned some of the stuff from within our own family line of stuff. I'll be seeing the updated stuff for Kerr too.
That's right.
I didn't even realize Grounded was part of this indie showcase. I'd read a little bit about that. It's the whole I think RPS kind of aptly put the nail on the head of like, it's been a while since we've last seen Rick Moranis and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but here we have it.
Really?
It's Grounded. It's not actually. Come on now. It's not,
okay, gotcha. It's the concept.
You're in your trunk in the backyard. You're a little tiny kid in the backyard.
All right. I guess our rock paper shotguns
Grounded edition.
Writing style is just
kind of
snarky.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's. I'm looking forward to trying that out, and just I don't know. I don't know if Get to the Orange Door has a new demo, but if they do, if they have something, anything new there, I'll see. I had been following Dreamscaper for a little bit already. I played there before they had their any of their early beta, early alpha stuff. I played some of their stuff because of various things that we were doing, and I want to see what Dreamscaper is doing these days for their newer demo. So we'll see. I think that's everything on the docket for now. I absolutely know that list is going to get
bigger. Yeah, as you just kind of browse through the Steam Game Festival, it's like there's a lot there. And a lot of interesting looking stuff too. It's not just a lot. It's not just a lot of low quality stuff. A lot of stuff is worth playing.
There is, and even just not even like qualifying it in any way, like worth playing or not worth playing. There's a lot of stuff that just looks interesting.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
there's that for sure. Like I will go into this Steam Game Festival thing and I'll just click on the tab and I'll be like, this is cool, this looks interesting. Oh, there's a demo. Okay, cool. Like that's there's so many easy decisions to make because demos are free. You just sure, I'll just download it and then like it's no cost to me. I'm just gonna try it. Right. The only cost is my time.
My hard drive space.
Boy, do we not? Well, there's that. Yeah. Boy, do we not account for how much time it's going to take us to play all of these games. Like it's just it's going to be if I really was actually going to explore all the games that I thought were interesting, it would just take me all week. I wouldn't even have time to do any of this streaming stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's like actually giving these games the time of day, the time that they actually need, it just would be like to actually respect and get into a game. Like it takes a little bit of time. So it's gonna be. There's going to be a lot of games there, but there's also going to be a lot that fall by the wayside just because we just don't have enough time to play every single one of them. But, you know, hopefully I'll get to some pretty good ones, and I know I'm looking forward to at least exploring a few things that I didn't... that I discover. I'm looking forward to discovering games, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the kind of the reason why this exists, really, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
absolutely.
It's
why Steam put this together. It's
to kind of like bring these
for creators, right?
Yeah, to kind of bring these to the forefront. In lieu of not having any E3 or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're getting these kinds of showcases, and I think this is really. I think this kind of changes the landscape for developers in terms of how and in what way we showcase games like this, and what may be the standard going forward. I'm not saying this is going to change the standard, but I am going to say this is now an option. Like having things like this, having showcases like this are now more an option than they used to be.
Because previously it's just inertia carrying us forward, right? It's like, I mean, we've always done it this way. Keep going. Also, 420 kills. We've been, we'll just keep going. So
right. Yeah. I don't know why I displayed that when considering it was a replay.
No, that was not a replay.
Oh, it wasn't?
That was me.
Awesome. Bug. Okay, cool. Sweet. But yeah, we'll see about the upcoming future, about stuff that's going to be like in terms of showcases and how it's going to be shown, and whether or not things like E3 are going to be moving forward with the same kind of stuff. I mean, who knows? Maybe in the future, E3 next year will be both a showcase and an online kind of showcase too. There's a lot of different ways we can explore reaching out, not just to the press and letting them be the sole gateway between the developers and the consumers, but also letting the consumers essentially get their hands onto games themselves. I know if this is, changing that mold is going to be hard, and it may not be ideal for every studio, because creating a demo is hard. You're spending time out of your day to create something that is explicit for a showcase that may not necessarily have any other purpose other than for that showcase. Like you might actually be wasting your actual development time trying to create this demo instead of, spending time actually making the game. So some people, I've heard a lot of developers say, like, I don't want to create demos. This is a lot of
time spent
showcasing the game rather than developing it. We're going to all these developer events, or we're going to all these showcases, all the travel time, all of the build time, all of these like special scenarios we have to account for, having to clear the leaderboard or having to wipe the leaderboard. It's like stuff like that are just like having to do all those things kind of gets in the way of the development itself. But at the same time, I know, looking from a consumer's perspective, it's really hard for a consumer to really tell what is or isn't worth their time. And I think demos go a long way to helping people make that decision. And it's, if anything else, it's definitely an outreach effort that feels like you as developers are concerned or considerate about the consumer's endpoint experience. So just that alone makes it feel like you're trying to consider them, and that does a lot. That does a lot for the peace of mind that a person has when they're deciding whether or not to care about a game. Does the developer care about me as a consumer? Did they give me the chance to even evaluate this game honestly? And I think demos go a long way to saying, yeah, we do. We care about you caring about our game. We hope you have fun. I mean, I'm saying that outside of us creating this demo for the consumers here, but I'm just saying that from a consumer's perspective. Like, I know it feels much more like the developer cares when they're willing to let you try their game out for, with a demo or something. But
also,
like
we totally put a lot of effort in making this demo, so go play it.
So go play it, please. So yeah, with that, actually, we should probably just close out the stream since we're closing. We're approaching the. What's that?
Yeah, since we're closing it on 7.
Yeah, since we're closing it on 7, since we're approaching the hour.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, we can summarize here with yeah. This is Breakpoint. It's our. I still don't know whether I like twin stick slasher, but you know, it's a twin stick slasher.
I saw the Not E3 showcase thumbnail page, and they actually listed it that way. So now we are that. It's a genre. It's a genre now.
It's a twin stick slasher where your weapons explode. That's Breakpoint.
That's Breakpoint.
And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys' high scores over the week. The coming days.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna be watching out for whoever can beat my high score out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
We'll be streaming and showcasing every day from 5 to 6. So check out and check back for an announcement every day, either on the Steam store page for Breakpoint or by following us on Twitter at NickAmlag, at ChaosEd0, or at Quantum APG on Twitter. That'll be us for the night.
Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you throughout the week.
Yeah. Hi, bye-bye.